Hi guys, my name is Roxy. Welcome back to my channel, and this is True Crime with Roxy. Today's case is the famous Chris Watts case, also known as the Watts family murder. It is about a man called Chris Watts that murdered his entire family, and that is what we will be covering today. But in today's video, we'll talk more about his mistress, Nicole Kessinger, as well as their relationship, because I feel like the Netflix documentary really didn't include a lot about Nicole as a person or how her affair with Chris Watts impacted this case. So we are going to look at that today, but before we start, I'm going to give you guys a background on the Watts family, who Chris was, who Shannan was, and who they were as a family and what kind of relationship they had. So as you guys know, with all my videos, I start it off with the background on the specific person involved in the case, and we will talk about the Watts family and how Chris and Shannan met. So Chris and Shannan met back in 2010. Chris is from Spring Lakes and Shannan is from Aberdeen. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, so I'll put it on screen. And Chris and Shannan met back in 2010, and 2 years after they were married in 2012. They had 2 children. Their first daughter, or their firstborn daughter, was Bella Marie Watts. She was born on the 17th of December 2013, and after that they also had their second daughter. Her name was Celeste. I'm not really sure if it's Celeste or Celeste, but she is more well known as Cece, and she was born on the 17th of July 2015. The Watts family lived in Frederick in Colorado. They bought a house in 2013, but unfortunately the family faced a few financial problems and they declared bankruptcy in 2015. Chris Watts, also known as Christopher Lee Watts, worked at Anadarko, a petroleum company, and Shannan Watts worked as an independent representative for a multi-level marketing company. At the time of Shannan's death, she was 15 weeks pregnant with her son, her and Chris Watts' son, Nicole Watts. So let's move on to the relationship of Chris and Shannan. They were married back in 2010, as I've said, and they basically had a normal, happy relationship as we all have in the beginning of our marriages. They seemed very happy, and Shannan was very active on Facebook. She used to film a lot of videos, family videos, and in the family videos it appeared that they had a loving and great relationship. There wasn't anything suspicious, but as we all know with family home videos, it's that it just gives a certain part of the story, but they generally seemed really happy. Shannan also appeared like the more dominant partner. She appeared more like she was more in control in the relationship, and Chris seemed like a more laid back, reserved and quiet person. And basically that's how most of the people knew them. Shannan was more outspoken and Chris was more quiet and reserved. In Shannan's video, she claims that Chris was a great husband and father, and in the videos you could also see that he was a great father. He used to play with his kids and he seemed really happy. He seemed like he loved being a dad and everything just looked perfect, and he would normally confess her undying love for her husband, and they really looked like they were extremely happy.
Got a friend request from Chris on Facebook. Well, one thing led to another, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
But unfortunately, something sinister was going on in the relationship, or something drastically changed that led to Christopher murdering his entire family. So now I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a brief description of Shannan's personality as well as Chris's personality. This is information that I could find from the internet or documentaries that I've watched. So Shannan seemed like one of her friends described her as OCD. She was very anal about appointments, and some even described her as being a very controlling person. And she was basically a perfectionist, and she liked things going a certain type of way. But Shannan was more of the controlling role in the relationship. However, Chris seemed like the more reserved person. He seemed more quiet, but Chris was also a serial cheater. The relationship that he had with Nicole Kessinger was not the first affair that he had. And I know some people might be surprised about this. And there was also one man, I'm not really sure how credible this man is, but he said that he had a relationship or an affair with Chris back in 2017. Like I said, I'm really not sure whether this is correct. And I also know that Chris had a few other affairs with few other women, and their names are not made public, but he mostly met these women on a dating site called Tinder. I know you guys are all familiar with Tinder. So Christopher Lee Watts was unfaithful to his wife, and Shannan probably didn't know this because she always said that he was a great husband and he was a great father. So I can assume that she was not aware of Chris's extramarital affairs. Shannan also didn't really have a good relationship with Chris's family. In a lot of the text messages or in the Netflix documentary, you could see that Shannan really didn't have a good relationship with Chris's family, and they also got in a major argument where Shannan accused Chris of not standing by her side or not siding with her in this particular argument that they had over Cece and her allergies. So basically, as you can see from the text messages, they just didn't really have a good relationship. Chris also later described that he resented his wife for driving a wedge between him and his family. And I think that is also one of the reasons that he had this built up anger towards his wife that eventually led to her death, other than the affair that he had with Nicole Kessinger. So in the beginning, they seemed like a happy couple, despite the issues that Shannan and Chris's family had. But as I know, they have been having these issues since the beginning of their marriage. So I don't really, although it might have been brewing, I don't think that's the reason why he decided. It might be a contributing factor, but I don't think that is the reason why he decided to murder his wife. But 2 months or 3 months before the murder, he met Nicole Kessinger. They only started their affair 2 months prior to Chris murdering his family, or that is known to us. I'm really not sure if that is correctly. It can be a little bit longer because basically it just doesn't make sense for a man to murder his family over a woman that he only knew for 2 months. But that's based on the information that we have. So when Chris met Nicole, he started really neglecting his wife, and Shannan did notice that Chris was becoming a little bit more distant, as you guys can see in the text messages. She really noticed that he wasn't himself, and she was really worried about her relationship because basically their relationship was falling apart, and Chris was falling more in love with Nicole. And he was so uninterested in his wife Shannan and the new baby that was on the way. So before we get into who Nicole Kessinger is, I want to give you guys details on what happened that day when Shannan and her two daughters went missing and was later found. So on to what happened that specific day. So on the 13th of August 2018, Shannan returned from a business trip from Arizona, and she returned approximately 2 a.m. that morning. She was dropped by her friend Nicole Atkinson. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing her name correctly. So Shannan was supposed to have a doctor's appointment the next day, and her friend Nicole was supposed to take her to the specific doctor's appointment, but Shannan didn't show up for the doctor's appointment, or she didn't really reply to her friend's text messages. And as I've mentioned earlier, Shannan was really strict when it came to time management, and she was basically very anal about keeping appointments and keeping schedules and being on time. So her friend found it extremely weird that Shannan didn't reply to her text messages, didn't reply to her calls, and was just totally silent. So basically, she got a little bit worried, and then she went to the Watts family home at approximately 12:10 p.m. the same day. As I said, she was dropped at 2 a.m. So at the same day, she went at 12:10 p.m. She went to Shannan's house to look for her and find out what was wrong. She went to the house and she knocked on the door and called Shannan, but basically the door went unanswered. They peered through the windows, but she couldn't see or hear anything. She was a bit worried, and she called Chris. Now, when she called Chris, Chris said that Shannan took the kids to a play date, but Nicole knew that this wasn't true because she knew that Shannan had a doctor's appointment, and it was so unlike Shannan to just miss a doctor's appointment. And Nicole called the Fredericks Police Department.
All County Communications. My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. She's not answering the door. She's not responding to text messages, phone calls, and there's no movement in the house whatsoever.
The police officer arrived an hour later, say approximately at 1:40 p.m., and he came to do a welfare check. So you will see this on the video. He was asking around, asking the neighbors, and he was basically looking for Shannan. They were outside the house. They didn't go inside the house, and Chris did arrive a little bit later. And the police officer was talking and questioning Chris about his wife, and Christopher allowed the officer to come inside the house, and when they entered the house, they could still find Shannan's purse and Shannan's car in the garage. So already the police found it really suspicious. Nicole found it really suspicious, and that Shannan would just leave the house basically without her purse, without her car keys, without her car.
Scott, how you doing? How's it going? So this is the only vehicle she would have?
Only one that, yeah.
She would drive? Okay.
Officer Coonrod then asked to search the home.
Mind if I look around?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Shannan's purse and wallet on the counter. Wedding ring on the nightstand.
So they already knew that something was wrong, and they basically questioned Chris and asked him if they had a fight or if something was wrong. And he was basically trying to kind of avoid the question. So I think at that time, Chris and the police officer went to a neighbor, and the neighbor showed a video to Chris and the officer where Chris was basically loading his car at that morning hours that Shannan returned from Arizona from her business trip. He was showing Chris loading his car for approximately, or his truck for approximately 50 minutes, which is kind of weird, because why would you load your truck for approximately 50 minutes in the morning hours? So the neighbor also told the officer that he found Chris Chris's behavior very odd because, like I've said, Chris was a very quiet and reserved person, and the neighbors said that Chris seemed more, he talked a lot, and he seemed more fidgety, and I think that is when the neighbor realized that Chris wasn't acting like himself, because he normally didn't talk a lot, but now when they were showing him the footage on the camera, I think he was kind of surprised that his neighbor had footage of him loading the truck, so he kind of got a little bit nervous, and the neighbor picked up on that, but the police didn't really see a lot into Chris's behavior. He only said that it was normal because Chris might be behaving this way because his family is missing.
And he was really swaying back and forth.
I think the day or the next day, Chris did an interview with a news television station, and basically in that video you could see that Chris was acting extremely weird. He was basically holding himself and rocking about. A lot of experts said that this is a behavior of a person trying to console himself, and trying to close himself off to the world and trying to console himself. So a lot of people found that extremely weird. A lot of people even said that when they immediately saw him standing like this, they knew that he was guilty or he was involved with his children and his wife's disappearance. One thing that also stood out for me on that interview is the way he spoke about his family in the past tense. He said that there was, normally when a murderer knows that a person is no longer alive, they would refer to this person in the past tense. So he referred to his family in the past tense, and he also tried distancing himself from his family when he referred to his children as those kids. Never in a million years would I ever say that kid to my daughter, because I know my daughter is mine, so I would never say that kid. It's like, and a lot of people or experts said that that was Chris's way of distancing himself from his family. The entire interview just seemed really weird, the way he was speaking about his family, and you could really see that he wasn't genuine about this. 2 days later, on the 15th of August 2018, Chris did have a polygraph test to find out more about what he knew about his wife and children's disappearance, and Chris failed this polygraph test. And this basically was the beginning of the confession. After the polygraph test was taken, and after the polygraph examiner told him that he failed the test, this is when he basically confessed to the murders. But before he confessed to the murders, he did tell them that he wanted to speak to his father. So he basically confessed to his father, and then he told them. Now, in this first confession and him admitting to murdering Shannan, he didn't admit that he murdered his family. He said that Shannan murdered his 2 kids, and in a fit of rage because he was apparently mad at Shannan for murdering their kids, he did murder Shannan. So this was the story that he maintained for quite a while, but then later it was found out that it wasn't what really happened. So I'm going to play you guys the short video of this polygraph test and about his confession.
I just felt such anger that nothing, I didn't feel anything.
The father of 2, seen here with his father in a police interrogation room, blaming the death of the couple's 2 daughters on his wife, Shannan Watts.
Lost it in the choke her.
So So now we're going to talk a little bit more about Nicole Kessinger, Chris Watts' mistress. Now, like I've said, 2 months prior to Chris murdering his family, he did meet Nicole. Now, she worked at a company that basically sent her to work at Anadarko at that specific time, so they basically met at work. But the relationship didn't really get serious until the end of June that year that he murdered his family. But Chris, the relationship escalated really quickly, but a lot of people still question how much did Nicole Kessinger's relationship with Chris or the affair that they had influenced Chris to murder his family. And a lot of people speculate or say it was the reason why Chris murdered his family, and I can fully agree with that. Based on the information that I found is first, Nicole tried to play it off. She tried to basically make it seem like she didn't really know Chris that well and that the relationship was not that serious and that she was very surprised that Chris did this. Although I'm not blaming Nicole for what happened, but I believe that this affair did really influence or cause the family's death. Now, Nicole was probably not involved based on what I know this far, but there is evidence that make it seem like Nicole knew way more than she let on, because firstly she said that she didn't know Shannan's name and she didn't really know who Shannan was. She also said that she didn't know that Shannan was pregnant. She only found out about Shannan's pregnancy when they announced that Shannan was murdered and she was pregnant. So she kind of made fake claims and said she didn't know Shannan's name and she didn't know Shannan was pregnant, but a lot of evidence that was gathered, it showed that she did search Shannan's name. So if she did search Shannan's name, she would have found a lot of information. She would have found that Shannan was pregnant. Like I've said, Shannan was very, very, very active on Facebook, and she basically made a lot of videos and posts about her family life. On her Facebook account, she did talk about her new son that was coming, her son Nicole, and she did talk about her husband, about what a wonderful husband Chris was. And Nicole also claimed that Chris told her that they were basically going to get separated, and that was not the type of post that Shannan posted. Shannan basically told everyone that they had a happy family and that they were happy and that they were expecting a baby. So for her to claim and say that she believed Chris's story about them being or getting separated and all this other nonsense that she claimed that she didn't know, we all know by now that it wasn't true, because she searched for Shannan's name. Now, information that I found extremely kind of disturbing but also surprising. Chris said that the reason why he decided to murder his family is that he wanted to fulfill Nicole's wish of giving him his first son. And as we all know, Shannan was pregnant with Chris's son, Nicole Watts. Nicole also made it seem that she didn't really care that much about her and Chris's relationship, and that she basically wanted Chris to fix things between him and his wife, but a lot of text messages and a lot of evidence point in the opposite direction. She was very adamant towards Chris. She went to Chris's house at the 4th of July because Chris invited her there, but Chris told a totally different story, and he said that Nicole basically claimed to him that she was always going to be second best. That also doesn't sound like a person that really wanted her lover to fix things with his wife. But she was found approximately 2 hours or an hour googling for wedding dresses. So it is extremely weird that you would claim that the relationship is not that serious, but at the same time you get angry. She just didn't seem like a person that was really concerned, or that was really concerned about Chris Watts' relationship with Shannan. She seemed more like a jealous girlfriend, and she seemed like she was trying to control Chris. One of the things that also stood out for me is when Chris told her that he basically that Shannan wasn't there, and that he still had Shannan's wedding ring, and he didn't know what to do with it, and her answer was that he should pawn it. Now, why would you say something like that if you knew that there was a possibility that his wife would come back because his family was missing? So why would you tell your boyfriend, or the person that you are apparently so concerned of, and the person that you want to fix his marriage with his wife, why would you tell him to pawn a ring? It just doesn't make sense. And that also stood out for me again was that her cell phone pinged in Fredericks on the night of Shannan's disappearance. So it is extremely weird that she didn't live in that area. She lived approximately 20 minutes or 25 minutes away. Why would her cell phone ping in Fredericks, where Shannan and her husband Chris was living? So these are also the things that you have to ask yourself. One thing also that I find extremely suspicious is that she deleted her text messages, and she searched on Google, can a police retrieve messages? So why would you be so concerned that the police would retrieve your messages? What did you tell Chris that you didn't want the police to know? That we probably will never find out the truth about Nicole, and how much she is involved with the disappearance of, or with the murders of Shannan and her children, because as far as I know, that the plea deal that Chris signed, basically the police is not allowed or is prevented from digging more deeper into the phone or the text messages that was sent between him and Nicole. So I think in that sense she's basically protected, or he's trying to protect Nicole, but that is purely speculation, and that is one of the theories that is around, that she might be more involved. But then again, I can't really say anything. I don't want to blame the mistress for the death, but you have to ask yourself, like, how much is she involved? Somehow I almost forgot to tell you guys the most important discovery of this case. Now, I did mention that Chris said that Shannan was the one that strangled his two daughters, Bella and Cece, but later on in the case he did confess to killing Bella and Cece. Now, he said that night when Shannan returned from home, they had a fight, and then they made up again, and things were fine, and then they ended up fighting again. And this time he confessed to his affair. He told Shannan that he wanted a divorce, and this kind of made Shannan really angry. And according to him, he said that Shannan threatened that he would not see his kids again. And basically what he then did is he reacted, and he got really angry, and then he strangled Shannan. He also mentioned that he strangled Shannan. After that, his daughter Bella came into the room while he was trying to wrap Shannan's body, and she asked him what is wrong with mommy, and he told her that they're going to take mommy to the hospital because mommy is not feeling well. Now, that time Shannan was already she already passed away, she was already dead. And basically he took Shannan. Now as you guys can see, as the truck is backing up, I think that was the time that Chris loaded Shannan and the kids in the truck. Now Cece and Bella were still alive at that time that he loaded the truck, and he drove all the way to his work, where one of the sites of his work, and he digged a shallow grave for Shannan and basically dumped her body there. At first he smothered Cece with one of their favorite blankies. When Bella saw what he was doing to Cece, she asked him to not do the same that she did to Cece. And evidence actually shows that when he tried to murder Bella, she said, "Daddy, don't, please don't." And she kind of gave a little bit of a struggle, and after that he took the bodies and dumped them in two big drums. I think there's oil in those drums, and he dumped the bodies in there. One of the sad parts of the story is that these drums, the openings of these drums was so small. The opening was only 8 inch. Now you guys know how small 8 inch is, and according to the evidence, Cece and Bella were a little bit, their upper body part was bigger than 8 inches. So basically he had to break their bodies in order to put them in these big oil tanks. So guys, you have all the information about the case as far as I know it. Chris was sentenced for 5 life sentences, 1 for Shannan, and 2 for the for Bella, and 2 for Cece. That is what the information that I could get from the internet, because I was a bit confused on why he was sent for 5 life sentences. But from the information that I read is that he was sent 2 times for each child because they were under the age of 12. So he basically got 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. And he also said that if he never met Nicole, that he would have never murdered his family. But that is up for debate. So yeah guys, that is all for today, and thanks for watching. Bye.